Ecuador set out to decapitate its cartels and ended up blowing the map apart. With Black Willy gone and Noboa's war in full swing, gangs are no longer defeated. They are multiplying, splintering, killing for scraps. When the state breaks the pyramid, does crime become ungovernable? In Ecuador, the government's war against organized crime is reshaping and in many ways destabilizing the criminal underworld. What began as a bold crackdown on gang leadership has fractured networks once tightly controlled, unleashing a surge of deadly violence from the port cities to the capital's outskirts. In March, a shootout tore through several homes in Nueva Prosperina, one of Guayaquil's most violent neighborhoods. The death toll, 22 people. Police say it was not an isolated event, but part of a broader phenomenon, the local expression of a national breakdown of gang structures following the government's arrest of key criminal leaders. Nueva Prosperina had long been controlled by Los Tiguerones, one of Ecuador's most notorious gangs. But the capture of their leader, William Alcivar Bautista, known as Black Willy, in Spain in late 2024, set off a war between rival factions. Bautista, wanted in Ecuador for ordering a January 2024 armed attack on a Guayaquil television station, broadcast live remains in custody, pending extradition. That television station assault was among several attacks that prompted President Daniel Noboa to declare war on 22 gangs and their leadership, launching a sweeping militarization strategy that sent soldiers into prisons and onto the streets. The initial results, a brief drop in violent deaths, boosted Noboa's political capital and helped secure his first full presidential term earlier this year. But as the heads of major gangs fell, violence returned with a vengeance. Police officials and security experts told Reuters the capture or killing of top leaders has splintered gangs into warring factions, as lower-ranking members scramble to seize territory and income sources. Interior Minister John Reinberg told Reuters that the government's campaign is weakening entrenched criminal structures, but acknowledged that it has provoked violent retaliation.
We have achieved what no one else has achieved, and even more than those who criticize, many of whom are actually to blame for the situation we are experiencing today, to weaken structures that had been growing and that no one was doing anything about them. After that, we also gave a severe blow to the Lobos structure when we seized their assets and companies. We did the same thing we did with the Choneros we did to them. We attacked them and caused them damage of more than $20 or $30 million. I don't remember the exact figure anymore. And that obviously also led to confrontations between these structures.
Reinberg said other gangs quickly moved to exploit the weakened organizations, triggering a new round of turf wars.
Other structures took advantage of this weakening to begin to attack, to begin to take away the territories where the Choneros were working. So that's where it begins, and you must have remembered the numbers that were raised to us in Manta. At that time, we mobilized police force and military force in the sector to normalize, and that is what has been happening, not only in Manta, but in different places.
The results are stark. In the port city of Manta, homicides surged 59% through September, reaching 116 killings, as rival group Los Lobos moved to capture Los Choneros' former stronghold following the extradition of their leader, José Adolfo Matias, alias Fito, to the United States in July on drug and weapons charges. Nationwide, homicides rose more than 36% in the first 9 months of the year to 6,7 and 97, compared to the same period in 2024. Officials say over 84% of those killings are linked to gang activity. Durán now records a homicide rate of 103.3 per 100,000 residents, among the highest in Latin America, far outpacing Mexico City's rate of 10 and Rio de Janeiro state's 22.1 per 100,000. President Noboa estimates Ecuador's criminal economy generates around $30 billion annually, nearly a quarter of national GDP, underscoring the scale of the challenge. Speaking to Reuters Interior Minister John Reinberg said,
"We've managed to weaken structures that were growing unchecked. It's not that the strategy doesn't work. It's that we're taking increasingly forceful steps to attack them.
Ecuador was once considered one of South America's safest countries. But over the past 5 years, it has transformed into a critical drug transit hub as traffickers rerouted shipments south to avoid intensified operations along Colombia's Pacific coast. The COVID-19 pandemic, which battered Ecuador's already fragile economy, further opened the door for cartels to recruit, corrupt, and expand. Despite ongoing military deployments and states of emergency, Durán and Guayaquil remain vital nodes for cocaine trafficked from Colombia to the United States and Europe. Government figures claim some success. Noboa says 16 major gang leaders out of 18 on his list and 125 mid-level members have been captured or killed this year. Officials also claim to have cut criminal revenues by $4 billion so far. Yet analysts warn that removing top figures creates dangerous power vacuums.
Removing some high-level members would not necessarily translate into relief, but rather into a growing fragmentation of these groups, and therefore a growing fight between a growing number of armed groups. Each group is possibly weaker than the one it stems from. Possibly. But as the number of groups to be confronted increases, it also becomes more difficult to prioritize and dismantle.
As gangs splinter, criminal diversification is expanding. Groups once focused solely on cocaine exports now branch into weapons sales, extortion rackets, and land buying scams, often within the same territory. Smaller outfits offer contract killings, safe houses, and logistical support for major cartels, frequently employing teenagers as drug runners and informants.
It seems that the Ecuadorian state, through its authorities, focuses solely on organized crime, instead of deciphering or focusing on disorganized crime, which is the type that produces the greatest impact of violence and, above all, a negative effect on citizens.
According to government data, 30% of Durán's homicide victims are between 12 and 24 years old, many of them low-level dealers caught in the crossfire. Meanwhile, alliances shift constantly. Rival factions of Los Tiguerones have aligned respectively with Los Choneros and Los Lobos, while two Choni Killers factions have joined the Lobos network, an increasingly unstable mosaic of shifting loyalties. In September, the United States designated Los Choneros and Los Lobos as terrorist organizations, granting Washington new legal tools to pursue their assets. Under our laws, we are now allowed, for example, to go after the property assets and money of any individual in the United States or in the US banking system who is associated with those groups. The designation also strengthens the US-Ecuador intelligence cooperation, even as tensions linger between Washington and Bogotá over Colombia's failure to stem the cocaine flow north. For President Noboa, however, US support remains crucial, politically and operationally, as his government presses forward with an anti-gang campaign that is both shrinking criminal hierarchies and expanding the chaos below them. From the slums of Guayaquil to the ports of Manta and Durán, Ecuador's streets now reflect the high cost of dismantling powerful cartels without a plan for what replaces them. The state may be winning battles, but as the gangs splinter, the war itself is only growing more diffuse, more violent, and harder to end.